सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्देशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनामने गौतुसे नमः वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for joining in. We are reading from third Canto, chapter number 25, titled as The Glories of Devotional Service. Give me a quick second. We're going to resume our discussion. Last class we had on Sunday morning, and we completed our discussion until 40th verse. 40th verse onwards, we'll take a discussion. Just to give a quick recap, in verse number 28 onwards, Mother Devahuti began to ask question. In text number 28, Devahuti Ruvacha, she asked, on hearing the statement of the Lord, Devahuti inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing? So, bhakti, her question was about, what kind of bhakti we should develop. And the answers to that is what being discussed here in the set of verses that we're reading. But yet, nonetheless, we're going to go to the next chapter also. So let's take a look at the second question that Mother Devati asked in text number 29. The mystic yoga aims at Supreme Personality God. It is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga. How many ways are there by which one can understand the truth, in truth, that sublime yoga? So that subject matter will come in the next chapter. That's about mystic yoga. So these are some of the questions which were asked. So right now for the first question, Lord Kapila began to give an answer from 32nd verse where he said bhakti. And how to perform bhakti. He began talking about, first of all, we need to engage. If the end goal is bhakti, what was an intermediate goal? Yes, which means engaging the mind. So that is how Lord Kapila Dev begins with text number 32. This is something which I discussed before. We have an elaborate subject matter, and it is worth reminding ourselves time and again. Our progress can be gauged by sensing or understanding how much our mind has become content, pacified, satisfied in practice of devotional service. How many of you have an experience? I was recently doing a little bit of contemplation on this. How many of you, being in this Krishna consciousness for years together, how many of you still find once in a while certain sense of dissatisfaction or hankering, as if you want something else? In other words, how do I put it? We know Updesham with Srila Rupa Goswami talking about Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jibba Vegam, Udaru Pashta Vegam. How many of us still hanker for some Prajalpa? Or Well, that's okay. I'm not asking that way. That is, all of us would have it. That's not my point. What I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to give you food for thought. Think about how and where we are. A lot of times, this question is asked, how am I bhakti? How am I progressing in bhakti? You can analyze for yourself. Intermediate goal is mind, and goal is bhakti. You have to engage the mind. Mind is the pivot of all the senses. So, in that sense, how our mind is our mind finding satisfaction in Krishna conscious activities. Okay, let me put it this way. Let's do a short exercise. You may do it now, or you can do it later on by putting more, or else you can keep this question car parked for yourself and constantly think about it over a span of a week. And the question is highlights bhakti actions or activities that gives you great sense of satisfaction. You simply love it. You're happy doing it. I'm not saying doing it for long, long hours, but even let's say short span of time, half an hour, 1 hour, you're very happy doing it. Can we all do that exercise quickly? So this is first part of the question. Second part of the question, can you list down activities, which, really helps you disconnect from the material energy? Somebody could very well study scripture, hear classes, not because he does it in the mood of service, but because he knows that I have to give a class and I have to show to people how learned I am. It's such a big problem with this, giving classes and all that. It's a very dangerous thing. This such a deep-rooted desire that I want to prove to my audience, hum jaisa koi nahi. I'm such a great, uh, prolific speaker, a learned speaker, and whatnot. Uh, is that okay? Question. So, how many of you jot down, let's say, 3 or 4 activities in Krishna consciousness life that really gives me juice? How many of you could jot down, not one, but jot down several activities you think gives you juice? It could be one gives you a lot of juice, second gives you a little lesser. But can we jot down something? But when you're doing that, you got to put a little bit of your mind into thinking that activity should not, you should not be finding juice in that activity because that leads to certain amount of pujala pratishtha. As I said, giving classes. I'm hearing and reading because I have to give class. That gives pujala pratishtha, so that's a different thing. We're not. But let's say somebody will say, oh, Kirtan, I just love. With Kirtan, another challenge with Kirtan at times, this is how the false ego plays out. Uh, Not everybody can really sit in Kirtan and relish for long. Uh, they would say, I can relish Kirtan only if I am leading it. Particularly if you have the skill set. Either I should be leading it, I should be playing musical instrument, only then I'll sit for Kirtan. Point is, despite you being a good singer, being a good mridanga player and whatnot, yet you can sit in someone else's Kirtan and enjoy Kirtan. I'm not saying enjoy means in the sense of exploitation, and can find satisfaction in Kirtan. That is bhakti. If I am leading a Kirtan with eyes closed, with too much deep absorption, etc., that is bhakti. Okay, that is bhakti. But then there another level of bhakti is where I am happy hearing the glories of the Lord. If someone else is also singing, of course, I'm not saying that should be singing really bass or something out of tune, but if someone else is also doing kirtan, I'm as much as happy and excited as I'm in my own kirtan. I'm happily. So that's bhakti, yes or no? Similarly, it comes to giving classes and hearing classes. Like we may discuss this before also. It is such a, this Bhagavatam classes culture was created by Srila Prabhupada. Why did Srila Prabhupada created this culture that every day, every morning we should have Bhagavatam class? Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Seva. Correct? That's the reason, no doubt about it. Now, so many times, in fact, in the very first chapter, in the first initial verses, in one of the purport propositions, what should be the qualification of the speaker of Bhagavatam? It should be who have read all the 4 Vedas, he learned in 4 Vedas, etc., like that. But that is not an action Prabhupada did it. Prabhupada said, whatever you have learned from me, repeat. If in case it was only that, no doubt about it, if we hear from a pure devotee, it will have a very great impact on consciousness. Well, if that was the case, Prabhupada only taught us, then Srila Prabhupada should have instituted a system. Now, every morning, there is one thing we do which is constant, consistent, and have not changed over 50 years of time. Can you think of one activity which is done by only one person, one single person, more than 50 years? Only that person does that activity and nobody else does that and nobody can do it. What is that activity? There is one activity which is constant across ISKCON worldwide, which activity with service is only allowed to be done by one person, and that one person has been doing for last 50 years and will continue to do till the nine. What is that
Yamuna
service?
Mataji.
Yes, accepting Guru Puja. Okay,
Hare Krishna
okay, good
Prabhuji.
thought. I thought the very many such are Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna
Okay,
Prabhuji.
okay, good one. What else? What else?
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Prabhuji, Yamuna Mataji's Govindam Adipurusham. That will
yes.
always remain.
Govinda Madhipurusham. Srila Prabhupada instituted that. Srila Prabhupada had tears in his eyes when he heard the recording tape. He received the tape. He was in Los Angeles, somewhere like that. He was like, wow, this is amazing. He was looking in the darshan of the Lord and he had tears rolling down his eyes and he said, we should have that. Now, Prabhupada's heart was moved and everyone's heart was moved hearing Prabhupada. If Prabhupada can institute a system where Mother Yamuna's singing should only be played. As you don't know the verses, you know that verses, right? You can sing it, I can sing it. अबे हम इतने कितने बुरे गाते हैं जो माता यमुना ही गाएंगी उनके एब्सेंस में भी वही गाएंगी but Prabhupada instituted. So Prabhupada could have instituted that Bhagavatam should only be given by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Yes or no? He should have instituted, could have instituted. Is there any other more pure devotee than him? Prabhupada didn't do that. Prabhupada didn't do that. Prabhupada created a system where we come and we hear from others. Of course, we know that, Guru Parampara system is there. So the challenge, anyways, coming to the point, the challenge here, those who are only used to giving classes, they should also sit and hear in the same forum where they're giving classes from others also. That culture has to be there. Unfortunately, this culture is disappearing. What to do? This is to be instituted. Uh, I sometimes feel like making a rule. Only those devotees would be allowed to give classes who themselves sit and hear the class. Now imagine if you don't sit and hear the class, but if you come and give and hear, if you just come and speak and give the class, what would be your mood? I'm purifying the consciousness of the audience. I'm giving something. You never at the sadhaka stage, you don't give class for purifying others. At sadhaka stage, you give a class as a service for my own purification. I mean, this is what kind of training and what kind of culture we are creating, kind of a thing. It is sad affair. I mean, you hear from spiritual master one lecture, two lecture, but this kind of thing, it only fosters pride and arrogance, and that will come out of your speech. Those who know have that sense of catching it, they can catch it up. What's going on? But find at times we cannot even correct such individuals. When we bring in this thing, then it becomes a little sensitive. We can only pray that people with time understand what is the right and why Prabhupada created that system. It's not that only brahmacharis will give classes, grihasthas will give classes. That is the culture until now. And the culture was everyone come together and hear it like that. So that's the whole idea. Or the point I was making prior to that, I started with um, bhakti, mind, 32-32nd verse, right? So mind. So I asked a question, the activities in bhakti that gives juice to one. So that's how we got then we can gauge our progress in Krishna consciousness. And there I made a point, we got to be careful. Do not include those activities which you're doing not in the mood of service, but in the mood of puja la pratishtha. That's where I brought the discussion of be wary or be careful of puja labha pratishtha. This is a big, you can say, different reality, opposite reality. Everything in conditional life we do, just like Krishna says, Jiva Bhuta Mahabhayo, Mahabhav Yedam Dharyate Jagat. This is 7th chapter, verse number 5th. Aparyam Istastvanyam Prakritim Vidhi Me Param Jiva Bhuta Mahabhaho Yedam Dharyate. Yedam Dharyate Jagat, which means they're trying to exploit, which means often we only find satisfaction wherein our puja la pratishtha increases. So be careful, don't have that. So that's the thing. So mind is the first thing. Absorb mind and seva, like that. So text number 33 then talks about how bhakti is greater. So this whole subject matter, what we read last time also, is a subject matter of bhakti and how bhakti progresses through association of devotees. Text number 35. Bhakta doesn't want liberation, but yet he receives liberation. Bhakta doesn't want benediction and unwillingly receives benediction. These are subject matter. 38, he meditates on the beautiful form of the Lord. And then 39 to 40, how Lord reciprocates to Sada Sadhaka is described. Very, very beautiful. Lord's reciprocation to surrendered devotees. Mood of a devotee. This 39, 30, 39, 40th purport is so beautiful purport. Uh, you know, Mood of repentance and mood of devotee. Okay, let me ask this question to all of you. These are going to be very profound and deep purports here now. Let me ask this question to you. What do you mean by service mood or service attitude? How do you qualify a service mood? Let's say Kirtan, doing Kirtan in service mood. What does it mean doing Kirtan in service mood? We are supposed to do everything in the mood of service. What it means service? For the pleasure, right? For the pleasure of other. What would be Kirtan in the service mood mean? Any thoughts? Okay, go ahead, Vishwakarma.
You sing when you're asked to sing.
Okay, you sing when you're asked to sing, correct? You lead, when you're asked. It's very interesting. Many times devotees ask for, particular services. That too also very selected services. Very few times you'll find devotees come and ask, Prabhuji, can I brew? I'm not saying devotees don't ask. I'm not saying that way. But I'm just saying when you're a little bit bewildered by false ego, and if people come and glorify, I'll tell you, this is something which really, really, really helped me. There was this Mother Kamagiri, one of her role models. I received a lot from her during my stay in America. She's Prabhupada disciple. When I was there, she was already 60 plus, so she should be now 75 plus, close to. And she had a little hefty body, because of which for her to do some service was very difficult. And her service for all these years had been cooking bhoga for the Lord. So she single-handedly used to come, and every Sunday means every Sunday, she'll come and cook Sunday feast. Now, when you're preparing Sunday feast, which means it will be a service for several hours, single-handedly. If any help she had was some of us who might just come during the course of her preparation, who clean vessels, or maybe at the end of the program, clean vessels. But she would largely prepare things by herself like that. And I remember, and this is cooking service, background service, not many people are seeing and all that fine like that. So I remember asking her many times, "Come, Mother, Prabhupada Appearance Day is coming, many devotees are going to speak, but I always see you sitting. You never speak. You should speak." So I remember one day she told me very interesting. She said, Mayank, let me tell you why I don't speak. She'll speak one-on-one. We can interact as much as, but she will not come and speak in public. I said, Mother, you are the senior most person, and young fellows are going and speaking, and God knows what they speak, but you should speak. Your realization will have a transforming effect. So she said, Mike, let me tell you why I don't speak. She said, I am so blessed. This is amazing, huh? This is amazing when you develop that service mood, how your perceptions changes for everything. She said, I feel so blessed. The Lord has not given me a great memory power. I cannot memorize shlokas. I cannot remember many, things like that, because I don't have that memory skill. So therefore, I don't give class. And then she said, and because I don't give class, because giving class is a prime time seva. Therefore, I don't have much risk of becoming proud and falling down. So I'm so happy that I'm doing my service in the background. कोई देखता नहीं, कोई पूछता नहीं। मैं कितना ही मैनेजमेंट को कह दूँ वॉलंटियर्स दे दो, वहाँ अपनी धुन में रहते थे हर कोई। When you get into management role, it's a little risky unless you're properly situated. With every position, you get privileges like that. She used to say, nobody asks, I'm there in the background, I'm so happy, humble mood. And I felt like, wow, this is bhakta. Far better bhakta who is giving a class where 1,000 people are hearing and cheering and clapping. How does it make a difference? If the mood is If you sit down to give a class, in a way that my class, my audience will be enlightened. Okay, you may have that little sense when they're your students, because then it is your service to help them, gain knowledge. But when you're sitting in your forum of peers, when you have seniors sitting, you can't sit with that mood. So it just depends on, and very interesting, what a very interesting thing happens is going to come. I'll discuss that then only. Let's move forward. So a very interesting phenomenon happen with the mind. I'll come to it. So this is the point here. And mood of a devotee, text number 3940, purport, first, second, third paragraph. A pure devotee is not anxious to elevate himself in his next birth. He has already given us that sort of hope. In any life in which one is born as a householder or even as an animal, one must have some children, some resources and possessions. But a devotee is not anxious to possess anything. He is satisfied with whatever is obtainable by Lord's grace. He is not at all attached to improving his social status or improving the status or education of his children. He is not neglectful, he is dutiful, but he does not spend too much time on the upliftment of temporary household or social life. He fully engages in the service of the Lord, and for other affairs, he simply spares as much as time absolutely necessary. And now comes beautiful verses, text number 41 and 42. Krishna says, Lord Kapila Dev says, Hey Mata, there is no way any living entity who's caught up in this samsara become fearless unless they take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Only that activity, when somebody takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, can liberate one from the fear, because only He can award us fearlessness. Na yatra mad bhagavata pradhana purusheshwara atmanah sarva bhutana bhayam tivram nivartati. Bhayam tivram nivartati. Like that. So only by taking shelter of the Lord, we can overcome fear. Very interesting purport. This is what I was planning to talk about. Let's take a look at the purport. In the first half of the paragraph, the middle, the answer is given by Srimad Bhagavatam 10:2-32. Yanyarvidaksh vimuktamanina, Lord Brahma and other demigods prayed to Lord Krishna when Krishna was in the womb of Devaki, and they prayed, My dear lotus-eyed Lord, there are persons who are puffed up with the thought that they have become liberated or one with God or have become God. But in spite of thinking in such a puffed up way, their intelligence is not laudable. They are less intelligent. It is stated that their intelligence, whether high or low, is not even purified. In purified intelligence, a living entity cannot think of anything other than surrendering to Krishna. Let's go back to the first few lines of the purport. One cannot surpass the cycle of birth and death unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The same concept is confirmed. One may take to the system of understanding the absolute truth by one's own imperfect sensory speculation. One may try to realize the self by mystic yoga process, but whatever he does, unless he comes to the point of surrendering to the Lord, no process can give him liberation. In other words, as a translation says, the terrible fear of birth and death can never be forsaken by anyone who resorts to any shelter other than myself. Think of Hiranyakashipu. Think of Kamsa. I mean, Kamsa is a better example. Kamsa is the best example. That is even quoted by Narad Muni in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was so fearful of death, because of which he was fearful of Krishna. He was so fearful. Even if he, in reflection, he would see a blue tinge, he'll remember Krishna. And he'll say, aa gaya, bachao, guards, guards, bachao. Such was his absorption. And it's the same Kamsa who went around the whole globe and conquered best of the demons who even terrified Devtas. like Aristasur, Pralambasur, etc. He was so powerful and yet he was so fearful. Even Ravana could not be saved from fear of death. Hiranyakashipu could not be saved. So that's the point I said. Nobody. Yet everyone is fearful. Yet there are people who imitate and they want to become Krishna. How amazing it is. Any example that comes to your mind, which even in Krishna Lila, we had a living example that Krishna was standing in front and he challenged, saying that you are not real Vasudev. I am real Vasudev. Your
Counter.
four hands, the two hands are artificial, although he had put an artificial hand. It's amazing now with what conviction you can lie. Think about it. It's just so amazing. He had put two artificial hands, and his conviction was so great that he even convinced a Brahmana that I am a real Vasudev, and he sent a Brahmana messenger from his city to Dwarka in the assembly of Krishna to convey his message. You should surrender. And what you have stolen from me, my Sudarshan Chakra. Give back my Sudarshan Chakra. I mean, amazing, amazing. It works like that. So that's how this subject matter. So Lord position, only you can Lord. So now question comes, Vishnu Chakravarti raises the question, hey, acha, only if one takes shelter of the Lord, then only you can be free from the fear, which means Krishna is, Kapila is saying, you should only take shelter of me. But what about other devtas? Similar question was asked in 7th chapter, when, so 7.14, 15, 16, those series of verses comes, Maya Diksha, no, okay. Devi Yeshu Gunamai, and then four kind of people surrender, four kind of people do not surrender, etc. And then Arjuna asked, my dear Lord, you're only talking about people who surrender to you and who do not surrender to you. What about devtas? And then 20 onwards, Krishna began to speak. Now, similar way, Vishnu Chakravarti says, Are, my dear Lord, you're saying surrender unto you only. But what about those who surrender to Devtas? Not about those who surrender to Devtas, but wouldn't other Devtas be upset with your statement? Because you are telling just like little Krishna told Brajvasis, serve Govardhan. Do not serve Indra. But Indra became angry. So now Vishnu Chakravarti is saying, if everyone has to take shelter of Krishna, so would Devta would not become angry? How many times this question is asked? When you ask people to take shelter of Krishna, they say, Are, hamare ishq podit ho jayenge? Yes. Now this is a very fantastic verse which you can memorize. And you can say this is what Shastra says. Text number 42. A very easy verse. Madbhayad vati vatoyam. मेरे भय से वाति वातोयम. वाति मीन्स हवा. वाति वातो चलती है. अयम. Because of my fear, the wind blows. Madbhayad vati vatoyam. सूर्यस्तपति मदभया. अगर सूर्य तपा रहा है तुम्हें, किसके भय से तपा रहा है? सूर्य उदय हो रहा है प्रतिदिन, किसके भय से हो रहा है? सूर्यस्तपति मदभया. मेरे भय के कारण सूर्य उठता है और सूर्य तपाता है. वर्षात इंद्रो दहति अग्नि. इंद्र के द्वारा बारिश होती है, अग्नि जलाती है. क्यों? मृत्युश्चरति मदभया. और मृत्यु काल के रूप में चरती, सब जगह फिर के सबके जीवन को छीन लेती है. क्यों? Whoever is born sure to die. सूर्य तपाएगा, आग जलाएगा, कहते हैं बारिश भी होगी. किसकी वजह से होती है? मद भयात. ये मेरे भय के कारण. It is because of my supremacy the wind blows out of fear of me, the sun shines out of fear of me, the Lord of the clouds, Indra sent forth showers out of fear of me, fire burns out of fear of me, and the death goes about taking his toll out of fear of me. कहाँ पे ऐसा भगवद गीता में भगवान ने कहीं कहा है? Any thought? Does Krishna says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita? There are many references. One very prominent and direct reference. Yes, Mother Prachi, your hand is up. Huh? Yes, Mayadhyakshena Prakriti.
No.
Suyate cha characharam.
हेतुनानेन
हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगत विप्ररि जगत
जगद्विपरिवर्तते
विपरीत. So Maya Adhyaksh, by me Adhyaksh Nena Kaunteya Suyate Chara Acharam, कहते हैं हेतुना ने न कांतेना. हेतुना तो ये जो प्रकृति जो सब करती है उसका कारण क्या है? मया अध्यक्ष. जगत विप्ररि वर्तते, इस प्रकार से पूरा जगत चलता है. सो मया अध्यक्षेन प्रकृति, 9th chapter verse number 10, like this. मया अध्यक्षेन प्रकृति सूयते सा चरा आचरम. सेम पॉइंट, चर आचर चलना सब उस प्रकार से मेरे अनुसार होता है. So this is the same point which is mentioned here. 43, 44, 45 verse, they're simple thing. We can use the translation here. 43 and 43 talks about Bhakti Yoga Mishra, Bhakti Mishra yogis and gyanis. The yogis equip transit knowledge, renunciation, engage in devotional service for the eternal benefit, take shelter of my lotus feet. I am the Lord, and they are eligible to enter into the kingdom of the Godhead without fear. Text number 44. Therefore, persons whose mind are fixed on the Lord engage in the intensive practice of devotional service. This only means for attainment of the final perfection of life. Reading the purport. Last few lines of the purport. Prabhupada writes, what is the way? In that way, all his senses were engaged. This was Amrish Maharaj example, if I'm correct. Example khatam ho gaya, Prabhupada kehte hain, first of all, mind should be engaged in the lotus feet of the Lord very steadily and naturally, because the mind is the master of the senses. When the mind is engaged, all the senses become engaged. That is Bhakti Yoga. Yoga means controlling the senses. The senses cannot be controlled in the proper sense of the term. They're always agitated. This is true also with a child. How long can he be forced to sit down silently? Not possible. Even Arjuna said, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. So my question to all of you is, when we know mind should be engaged at the lotus feet of the Lord steadily and naturally, how to facilitate that? How to do that? Mind to engage. How would you engage the mind of your students steadily and naturally? Or student has to engage his own mind by himself, or it is teacher's job, whose responsibility and how to do it? Forget about responsibility, how to do it. Let's talk about that. How to do it? Any thoughts? Yes. You want to say? मैं हाथ खड़ा करता ना. अच्छा, सवाल बदल गया मेरा. No. My question is, how do you engage the mind at the lotus feet of the Lord, steadily and naturally? Any thoughts onto that? Blue Ridge Youth Official. You can unmute and please speak, as you know, I'm not able to see everyone. Mother Vaikuntha Vijay Devidasi, engaging in devotional service. All right. Once again, how do you engage the mind? Who, Blue Ridge Youth, anyone is saying? You raise your hand, or was it something else? So, at a conditioned state, we cannot engage the mind without having certain amount of understanding of the psychophysical nature of that individual. When in your initial stages of bhakti or yoga practice, we are coming from the background where we have lived a life entirely controlled by the mind. Now we take to the process of bhakta, or process of yoga, where gradually we are setting ourselves free from the control of the mind, which means a gradual process, which means we should dovetail our propensity in the beginning. If somebody likes something, then we should create a service facility in that area so that he happily does it and he'll have less revolt from his mind. Yes or no? But imagine if he doesn't have taste for that service, which means taste from where? The like, dislike is a function of ichha, dvesha, samudhyana, is a function of mind. If he doesn't have that propensity for that and you put him into that service, oh, bechara se roega. So what should be done? Yes, we should dovetail, but we should also have certain service. If you're only dovetail, then what will happen? You will develop a sense of pride in that activity because you will naturally be good doing that. Yes or no? Because you like doing it. But along with what I like to do, we should also have some service where your authority tells you, just do it. Because that brings purification. Because that's a service, you do it for the pleasure of authority now. Because there's no pleasure for you. Making sense? There's nothing that your mind will find satisfaction. बस हमें बोला कि हम करेंगे. That develops surrender. But it cannot only be applied. This only cannot be given. If you give, जो बोला सो करो, कुछ और नहीं करने का है. Then when in the beginning we are brittle, will break. Will not be able to handle that. So dovetail our propensities simultaneously as we're making progress. The more progress we are making, in other words, the more our authority have confidence on us that you have made, some significant progress. To that degree, they'll give you direct service opportunity. All right, you do this. Until then, they'll ask, what would you like to do? Oh, this? Wonderful. Go ahead. All the best. My sincere prayers. Yes or no? Think about it. Put yourself in the situation. If you have a good wishes for the student in your mind, what will you do? Knowing that if I tell him what to do, this person will run away. Let him or her engage according to their propensity. At least slowly and steadily, some changes will happen. That's the point here. Fine. Let's move to chapter number 26. We'll read the first 9 verses. Very interesting discussion. So now the main section, the subject matter, where I wanted to focus actually, is Jiva, Prakriti, Purusha. Now the Sankhya Yoga begins. You ready for some excitement? Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Athate Sampravakshami, Tattvanam Lakshanam Pratat, Yad Vidatva Vimuccheta, Purusha Prakriti Ganehe. Let's do one little exercise. Write down a question. This would require certain contemplation. This is about studying the nature of one's own mind. Sit back and reflect how, before coming to Krishna consciousness, what was the state of my mind? Don't have to do it right now. This is what we call Sankhya, analysis. We're doing analysis, but you don't have to do it right now because I don't have that much time. For those of you who are sitting here, after the class, we'll have some discussion on that. I can't have long discussion on this in a live forum right now. So before coming to Krishna consciousness, you have to sit back and reflect a few minutes. What was the situation with my mind? How my mind used to function? If in case you can reflect on that. Now, after coming to Krishna consciousness, if any one of you think my mind was wild, okay, let me ask this thing. How many of you say that before coming to Krishna consciousness, my mind was crazy? Wild and crazy. So my first question to all of you is, and let me put it this way, and I am surprised, if anyone of you, I am surprised how my mind today has agreed to sit down and chant 16 rounds. How my mind can tolerate today to follow Ekadashi Vrata, when before I could not even go without even missing a meal. How can my mind allow me to live my life without watching IPL if I was a cricket fan? If you were a soccer fan, whatever sport. How has this had happened? How many of you think is what I'm saying is factual? If in case, have you wondered like this, or can you wonder like this right now? So think about it, how it happened. Write down your thoughts, and I would like to know your answers because that is very, very interesting. You don't have to give me your answers now. For those of you who are hearing online, you can send me your personal messages. If you think about it, what do you think? How did it all happen? Where your mind today is willing to hear Bhagavatam class, sit down and hear Bhagavatam class. How did it all happen like that? But some of you may have certain taste for some other things, but think of those things for which you didn't have a taste, but you're able to do today like that. And second part of this question is, now describe your state of mind as of today. What do you think your state of mind is as of today? How much less wild it has become, how much control it has become, how much surrendered it has become, or it is still independent? What do you think? Where do you put your mind into? Like a little bit, let's address our mind. Let's catch him right on his face. Like that, okay? So this is a little Sankhya exercise. Now, chapter 26. So, Lord said, Prasanna Godhead Kapila continued, My dear Madan, I shall describe to you the different categories of absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of modes of mental nature. That was text number 1. Very beautiful purport. Now, I'm reading from the middle of the purport. Now, the analytical study of devotional service will be explained by the Lord, who says that by such an analytical study, one becomes freed from the modes of material nature. By understanding the science of devotional service and Sankhya philosophy, one can become free from the modes of material nature. The eternal self, after becoming freed from the spell of the material nature, becomes eligible to enter the kingdom of God as long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or lord it over material nature. Yayedam dharyate jagat. There is no chance of his being freed from the influence of the nature's material mode. This is about relationship between Jiva and Prakriti. And what binds Jiva to Prakriti? Desire to enjoy. Draw a map. Jiva and other side Prakriti. And Fevicol ka jod, toote na toote. What is that Fevicol ka jod? Jiva's desire to enjoy. So you draw Jiva, you draw Prakriti, and you draw a cross connection between Jiva and Prakriti. And the strength of that cross connection depends on the desire of the Jiva to enjoy Prakriti. Therefore, one has to understand the Supreme Personality Godhead analytically explained in Sankhya system. I'm going to speak briefly today about Jiva and Prakriti. That time I'll take the subject matter again. Text number 2. Now I shall explain to you the supreme knowledge. Very interesting verse. Jnanam yashresya arthaya purushashyatma darshanam yadaho varna etatti hridya granti bhedanam. Knowledge is the ultimate perfection, self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut off. So the subject matter of knowledge is described. Text number 3, characteristics of the Lord. Anadiratma Purusho Nirguna Prakriti Parha Pratyak Dhama Swayam Jyotir Vishwam Yena Samanvitam. The Supreme Person Godhead said. Supreme Person Godhead is the Supreme Soul, no beginning, transcendental, he is perceivable everywhere, he is self-effulgent, and by self-effulgence, the entire creation is maintained. So beautiful verse, it talks about another. Vishnu, can send this verse and purport to Shubham. Sunday, I told him to give a class on Supreme Person Godhead. So he can refer this purport and give a class that talks about how, the Lord, who is Supreme Lord, in terms of what are the characteristics of the Supreme Lord, another. He can speak from here as it is. Fantastic purport. All right, I'm not going purport here. You can. Now we come to the subject matter we'd like to discuss about. Text number 4. Lord and Prakriti and Jiva and Prakriti. What is the relation between Lord and Prakriti? Sa esha Prakritim sukshmam daivim gunamayim vibhu yadrachayavo pagatam abhyapatyata leelaya. So, as his pastime, the Supreme Personality Godhead, the greatest of great, accepted the subtle matter energy which is invested with 3 modes of material nature and which is related with Vishnu. You can't skip the purports here. This is some amazing purports. So this whole material creation is Krishna's pastime. And material energy is Krishna's plaything. This is what this verse means. Let's take a look at the purports. The 6th line of the first paragraph. The energy emanated from the Lord manifests in 2 ways. An emanation from the Supreme Lord and as a covering of the Lord's face. Bhagavad Gita, it is said that because the whole world is illusioned by 3 modes of material nature, the common conditioned soul, being covered by such energy, cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Where does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Because you're covered by my energy, you cannot see me. Yes. All right. Anyone? Where does Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, verse number 13? Prior to Devi, Eshagunamai Mamama Duratya. No, prior to that, he defines what does mental energy do. In 14th verse, he says it is very difficult, insurmountable. Tribhir eva gunaha. Like that verse. Correct. That's but here in 13th verse, he clearly says everyone is covered by the curtain of material energy, because of which you cannot see. Somebody read out 7th chapter, verse number 13 translation. 7.13, a verse prior to Devi Yeshuganamai. Mother Prachi, your hand is up again. Is it for something or it's a hand
नो
which
प्रभु जी, सॉरी, पहले किया था.
kindly lower down your hand then?
त्रिभिर्गुणमयैर्भार
Yes, go ahead. Translation.
यैर्हि सर्वम् इदं जगत् मोहितं नाभिजानाति
Mohita.
मामेत्य परम् अव्ययम्.
Correct. Param Abhyayam.
Translation: deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible.
Exhaustible. Abhyayam. So, deluded, which means covered by the three modes of every living entity is covered by the curtains of three modes of meditation. All right. So, going back to the purport here, the example of the cloud is very nicely given. All of a sudden, there may appear a big cloud in the sky. This cloud is perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy. Very beautiful analogy, huh? So, what is given? There is a cloud in the sky. Now, it can be perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy. How is cloud is created? The sun heat or rays evaporates the water from the ocean, and that turns into a cloud. So, for the sun, cloud is energy. But to the ordinary man, in the conditioned state, it is a covering to the eyes. The cloud is a covering to the eyes, because of which he cannot see the sun. Because the cloud, the sun cannot be seen. It is not that the sun is actually covered by the cloud, only the vision of the ordinary being is covered. So this defines relationship between Purusha and Prakriti. So Prakriti is like cloud and Purusha is Surya, like this has been described about. Next paragraph. In another place in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 7th chapter, it is stated that Vyas, by his spiritual vision, saw the Supreme Lord and the material energy standing behind him. Yeah, this is in 4th, 5th, 6th chapter, the discussion comes. So when Vyasadeva had a darshan of the Lord, he saw the Lord, and behind the Lord, he saw the material energy, which means like a parchai. This indicates the material energy cannot cover the Lord, just as darkness cannot cover the sun. Darkness can cover a jurisdiction which is very insignificant in comparison to that of sun, like this. Text number 5, 6, 7. Text number 4 talked about Prakriti and Purusha. Is clear? What is a way to understand Prakriti and Purusha? Example is sun and cloud. Cloud is perceived in two ways. From the perspective of Jiva, cloud is covering the sun. But from the perspective of the sun, cloud is nothing but my energy. Similarly, that's Purusha and Prakriti relationship. Maya Dakshina Prakriti Svetesa Charachanam. Now, what is about relation between Jiva and Prakriti? Many times this question is asked time and again. Why did a living entity came to this world? Of course, there was an envy, no doubt about it, all that. But somehow he decided to look at Prakriti and he got bewildered. Now, how did he got bewildered? How does Prakriti bewilder us? Prakriti promises high results at low stakes, a low investment. What does Prakriti do? Prakriti offers high benefits, promises to give you high benefits, great benefits at low stake or low investment. Can you think of any example? How this Prakriti and Jivatma relationship, you can see it in everyday life. Some I'll give example right now, some I'll give after the class. So that is meant for brahmachari. But prior to that, think of some examples. How Prakriti, not how Prakriti, how Jiva Prakriti relationship. Prakriti, which gives you a very high offer. You come to me, you become the king. Why serve Krishna? You will be Krishna in my world. You will be happy. You will be the supreme director, proprietor, owner, controller, enjoyer, everything. Come to me. What to do? Low stake, nothing. Just come to me. Sit in my lap. I will take care of everything. And this is how we have been enticed, enchanted by this Prakriti, and we come to this creation. And from our childhood, if you see, our life is running on this false promise only. Padhai kar lo. लो इन्वेस्टमेंट, कुछ घंटे पढ़ाई करनी है बस, पढ़ाई करके हाई रिजल्ट, जॉब मिलेगी, बहुत अच्छा पैकेज मिलेगा, ड्रीम कंपनी मिलेगी। कितने कितने को ये फॉल्स प्रॉमिसेस या हाई होप्स दिए गए थे पढ़ाई करते समय? हाथ खड़ा करो। और सब होने के बाद पता चला सब धोखा है। संघर्ष की कहानी खत्म नहीं हुई। फिर उसके बाद हाई प्रॉमिसेस, अब शादी कर लो, राइट? इट कंटिन्यूज लाइक दैट. If you see, our life is governed by like this. Some other example you can think of gambling. That gives you just little investment, you can make a lot of money. And what happens in this? Because the promises are given so great, the propaganda is so great, we become victim. We know we are a victim, but we cannot come out of it because it gives such a hope. Agar ek baar, for example, Yudhishthira's gambling match, how can he put his brother Nakul Sahdev at stake? Forget about everything. He put himself at stake also. Forget that also. After he lost everything, he put Draupadi at stake also. How can he put Draupadi at stake? Because promise was so high. What was promised by Shakuni and Duryodhan? Just one chance. If you win, you gain back everything. So when नकुल का काम सहदेव की बात आई तो क्या था? देखो तुम्हें तुम्हारा राज्य मिल जाएगा, धन संपत्ति सब कुछ मिल जाएगी, इज्जत सब मिल जाएगी, बस एक बार जीत गए तो। युधिष्ठिर सेड बस एक बार, ठीक है। सहदेव हार गए। फिर उन्होंने क्या बोला? सब कुछ मिलेगा, भाई भी मिल जाएगा वापस, बस अब जीत गए तो ही लॉस्ट नकुल। नाउ नकुल, द मोर यू गिव इट, द मोर यू बिकम डिपेंडेंट। नाउ इफ यू वांट नकुल एंड सहदेव एंड ऑल योर वेल्थ, put Arjun. How can Yudhishthira put Arjun? He knew his life. Then Bhima. If you want Arjun, put Bhima. Now if you want Bhima and Arjun, put yourself. And if you want yourself, all your brothers, all your wealth, put Draupadi. Now, first of all, when he lost himself, that story ends. That's what Bhishmata said. Draupadi said, how it can happen, Bhishmata, save me. Bhishmata said, wait a second, बेटे इधर आओ। अपने पति से पूछो, जब वह खुद जुए में अपने आप को हार गया, जब वह खुद सेवक बन चुका है, तो उसकी तो कोई प्रॉपर्टी रही नहीं। When he doesn't have any property, when he has no right on you, how can he put you on stake? This is perfect Jivatma and Prakriti relationship. It's such a subject matter of analysis, do little analysis. That's how life goes on. Everything about life is like this. Winter sales, 75% off, 90% off. I can tell you, I don't know how many of you know of this. I remember when I would see that, I would, I say, Father, कितना बढ़िया discount है, चलो चलो चलो. So one day it was in Indore, it was a winter sale, and we purchased something on 50%. And my father was like, 50% में दो extra ले ले. We brought back and we came to home. My mother comes from a business family, and business family, they all had a cloth factories and cloth merchant. They were like that. So when we came back and she saw that we did some shopping and we went to get jalebi, I ended up buying clothes. तो मदर सेड, यार तुम्हें जलेबी लेने के लिए भेजा था संडे मॉर्निंग को, तुम कपड़े खरीद के लेकर आगे, क्या चल रहा है? तो मैंने बड़े कॉन्फिडेंटली बोला, मम्मा आप विश्वास नहीं करोगे, आज क्या मौका मिला। ये जो कपड़ा, जो जीन्स 2000 की थी, सिर्फ 1000 रुपए की, और हम 5 जीन्स लेकर आए हैं, 5 साल चलेगी। कितना फायदा हुआ। तो माय मदर सेड, अरे बोंधू मल, मूर्ख बालक, ये जो तुम्हें 1000 रुपए का कपड़ा भेजा है ना, बेचा है, उसका ओरिजिनल कॉस्ट होगा 500 रुपए। उसको 4 गुना कॉस्ट पे वो मार्केट प्राइस पे बेचते हैं, और जब डिस्काउंट की बात आती है तो फिर उसको डबल प्रॉफिट पे बेचते हैं। तो तुम्हारा प्रॉफिट नहीं हुआ है, प्रॉफिट तो उन्होंने तुमसे कमाया है। सो एनी टाइम व्हेन दे पुट ऑन डिस्काउंट, दे डबल द रेट प्रायर एंड देन से 200 रुपए का था, अभी हमने 50% मतलब 100 रुपए। सो अंडरस्टैंड, ओरिजिनल रेट वुड नॉट बी मोर देन 50। Now, because she knew, this is called Sankhya, because she knew, she could understand the relationship. And I didn't knew how the trick it played, I became victim. So like this, if you see, so how the Sankhya, which is described here by Kapila, when you understand this, when you understand how this thing functions, then we will not become a victim to the illusions of Maya. That's the point here. Material energy has the power to cover knowledge. Reading translation of 6th verse, 7th verse, and we'll pause. The divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of the living entities. And the living entities seeing this are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusion energy. Just like a boy sees a beautiful girl. And maybe the girl sees the boy, finds him handsome, and they become attracted to each other. We'll speak afterwards. Text number 6. Condition Jiva in action. Because of his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of matter energy as his field of activities. And thus, actuated, he wrongly applies the activity to himself. In other words, the cause of your action is Prakriti. The cause of your action is because of the he transcendental living entity accepts the influence as his field of activities and thus actually wrongly applies the activities to himself. So no activity is done by Jivatma. Who does the activity? Prakriti. Oh, such amazing thing. Now, any verse comes to your mind from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, hey, you do nothing, Ray. Prakriti hi kriyamanani guna karmani sarvashaha. Guna karmani sarvasha. Everything. Ahankara gunatma. Kartaham iti manyate. How can you prove Krishna correct? Yes, Krishna, what you're saying is correct. Give me some example. Nothing is done by Jivatma. Everything, which means you do nothing. Everything is done by Prakriti. So tomorrow we are bringing this a new series called as Human Psychology. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? So today we'll have this discussion, elaborate discussion on the subject matter. Prakriti hi kriyamanani guna karmani. Give me one or two examples quickly here. How? Jiva does nothing. Everything is done by Prakriti. Okay, next verse. Text number 7. Material consciousness is the cause of one's conditioned life, in which condition is imposed upon the living entity by the material energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything, and in fact transcendental to such activities, is thus affected by conditional life. Text number 8. The cause of the conditional soul, material body, and senses presiding deities, demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by learned man. The feelings of happiness and distress of soul, whose transcendental nature are caused by the spirit soul himself. So the point here in this verse is the cause of the action is Prakriti, but the cause of the result is Purusha. The cause of action is Prakriti, but the cause of result is Purusha. Now, what does it mean? Cause of action is Prakriti. First of all, my dear friends, this body is not ours. This body is given to us by Prakriti. Bhumir apo nalo vayu kham mano buddhir evacha ahankar ityante bhinna prakritir ashtada. These 8 separated energies are energies of the Lord, which is called in total sum as Prakriti, Pradhan, whatever you want to call it. So these are nothing but a combination of Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun. We got this. Now, if it is not your property, if it is property of Prakriti, who will control it? You or Prakriti? It is controlled by Prakriti. Yes or no? That's the reason we call it nature's call. Who's call? Prakriti's call, right? We call nature's call. You don't call, I call, my call. When you have to go and pass on, attend to bathroom, what do you say? Nature's call. But that is not only nature's call. खाना है वो भी nature's call है. प्यास लगी है वो भी nature's call है. Everything is dictated by nature, and you are forced to act like that. Everything around us. However, text number 7 says, so yeah, if Jiva is transcendental, Jiva does nothing, then why is he bound? Right? Why is Jiva bound with Prakriti? Why? Banana map. Jiva is bound because of desire to enjoy. Text number 7. Read translation. Material consciousness is the cause of one's conditioned life. This desire to enjoy is what called as material consciousness. What is spiritual consciousness? Desire to serve. Spiritual consciousness, desire to serve, and material consciousness is desire to. So this desire to enjoy, yayedam धार्यते जगत, उसी कारणवश जीवात्मा इस भौतिक दुनिया में फंसा हुआ है। सो प्रकृति के द्वारा ही सब कुछ है। शरीर प्रकृति का है, प्रकृति के द्वारा चल रहा है, पर जो शरीर कर रहा है वो कैसे होता है? वो हमारी इच्छा के अनुसार। हम जो सोचते हैं, जो इच्छा करते हैं, वो परमात्मा के द्वारा अगर अप्रूव होती है तो प्रकृति उसको फैसिलिटेट करती है। How many of you agree 90% of our desires are not fulfilled? Only 10%. Even that is very much. Hardly 2% of our desire gets fulfilled. 98% doesn't get fulfilled. Yes or no? Which means something which are happening in your life is happening because of desire. Okay, but is there everything that happening because of your desire? Does everything happen in life? That does not happen because of desire. Now, those things which does not happen by your desire, who is forcing upon it to you? Am I making sense? I say raise your hand. Raise your hand. Now, you desired to raise your hand. But there are many things in your life that happens to us where we have no role onto it, but we are forced upon it. Can you think of any activity which is forced upon us? Disease. What else? Old age. What else? Disease, old age. What is forced upon us? Death. अबे इतना छोड़ो यार, नींद, खाना, भूख, क्या है ये? Who want to sleep? If you don't have that need for sleep, why would you sleep? I mean, you can function without eating, without drinking. आज तो पानी भी नहीं मिल रहा. But these are forced upon you. Do you want that? No. This is forced upon you. This is called as material conditions. So even if an opportunity is given to us to exercise our desire, but we are still so limited by so many conditions. And on top of it, there is death, old age, disease, and whatnot. And then there are nature's law that act on us, which makes us feel fatigue, happy, sad, hungry, thirsty, and whatnot. In such a complicated environment, we are trying to fulfill our desire. And what is that desire? ययेदम धारित जगत. मुझे बस भोगना है. Imagine if your hands and legs are tied, your mouth is stuffed with a cloth, and you are put on your back, lying on the ground, and then you're waving your hands and legs saying that मुझे gulab jamun khana hai, gulab jamun khana hai. Can you really eat gulab jamun in that condition? When you're so much bound by? That is what our situation in the material world. This is what Sankhya tells us what our situation is. This is about Jiva and Prakriti. I shall pause here now. I want to have a few more discussions with all of you in person on the subject matter. Fine. Any clarification on the subject matter about Jiva and Prakriti? So if not, so thank you all for joining in. We'll pause here. We'll continue from 9th verse onwards when we catch up on next Friday. Jagaduru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. We'll speak to our youth for a while. We'll conclude this and I'll